Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Hello again and welcome to the program, Agriculture on the Move. I am Philip Sidney, your host. Today we are discussing a very interesting program. For those of us who know the name Fonds-Jacques in Soufrière, you would know what it is famous for. It was called the bread basket of St. Lucia, and I was told it still is. Why? Because of its diverse agricultural activities. From the time I know myself, in time of memorial, they grew a lot of root crops, including dashing, what we call the blue food. And I remember going up to Dewash, and Freedom had 10 acres of dashing, pure stand dashing. They grow a lot of vegetables, they grow a lot of citrus, but however, because of the terrain, it's very vulnerable to disasters, to landslides, etc. We are aware of the last disaster, which was the storm that we had there, and people perished. But life must go on, the people must live, there's livelihoods there, there's the forest higher up, and people must live. So there's still farming in agriculture, but they need to do it well. The soil conservation measures has to be done properly. That is why there is a project which is called Integrating Water, Land, and Ecosystems Management in the Caribbean Small Island Developing States. The acronym IWECo. Am I correct, right? Yes. With me are two energetic persons, I would say. To my immediate right is Miss Aretha Dasheville. She is the national coordinator of IWECo. And of course, we have Dr. Donatien Gustav, who is the research officer in the Division of Forestry and Lands in, of course, the Ministry of Agriculture. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Aretha, I'll start with you because since you're the national coordinator, tell us about IWECo.
Okay. Well, IWECo is a project funded by the Global Environment Facility and implemented through the UN Environment.
Okay.
It is a regional program, and its genesis stemmed from the fact that small island developing states are affected more by climate change than other areas in the globe. Hence, governments in the region have to ensure that communities and ecosystems must be resilient. So there's a lot of work to do. IWECo also applies a reach to reef approach, integrating watershed management as well as coastal areas management to tackle the myriad of problems with regards to water, land, including forest, biodiversity, as well as conservation. In St. Lucia, it's very targeted. It targets the upper Soufrière watershed, which is really Fonds-Jacques and environs. And it seeks to mitigate the poor biophysical conditions really caused by unsustainable land practices, but that affect the livelihoods of farmers.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I mean, I am aware of so many projects that they have had in Fonds-Jacques. Of course, the objectives are the same, basically.
Yeah.
So, Doc, tell us about forestry's involvement in that project. I think you're already implementing, division.
Well, thank you again on behalf of the Ministry of Agriculture and the Forestry Division.
Right.
It's a pleasure to work with IWECo, especially the coordinator. And what we really want to do is to get the partial cooperation of GEF, the Global Environmental Fund, to empower communities to do conservation. So forestry traditionally was protecting forests for water. Remember the time when we stopped people from squatting?
Correct.
We moved on to getting projects to know biodiversity in the 1990s. Today, we've changed that approach where we try to get strategic partners. And IWECo, the main function is to partner with them to empower communities to make the decisions. So unlike, there's a paradigm shift from working to protect, preventing entry of persons, to now trying to get other lands that are not under forest reserve to empower these people to change their practices to ensure that they are more sustainable.
Wow, interesting, very interesting. How long is that project? When did it begin and when it ends?
Okay, so it's a 3-year project. We're just about finishing the first year, and we have 2 more years to go around October, November 2020.
Okay. How do you all go about implementing that project?
Okay, so there are a couple of components, about 4. We have rehabilitations of lands, including tree planting and bioengineering. An important aspect as well is livelihoods, creating livelihoods for the farmers and the other community members. We have a component dealing with capacity building for farmers as well as extension officers and forest officers. And very important, awareness building and documenting best practices.
Okay, so where is it at now?
Right now, we've done all of the assessments and we've actually started implementation. In fact, what we've done so far, we've had a huge inception workshop at the community to get the buy-in, which we have. We're working with the development committee at Foster Jacques for that. With that, we've had a lot of activities, including a grand launch. We've hired people from the community and trained people from the community to do farm assessments. In fact, we recently completed 55 farm assessments. And we're in the process of planting along the riverbanks. Now, those farm assessments, we're in the process of analyzing them, and we will be doing customized restoration plans. So I know you've said that we've done a lot of projects, similar projects in the past, but this one is different because it's very participatory. At every step of the way, we want to consult with farmers. So when we'll go back to our desk, we'll do the restoration plans, and we'll go back to the farmers based on what they've told us that they want, based on what they've said that happens on the land, and we will agree, we'll have a gentleman's agreement and then start planting. Maybe it's important now to talk about the livelihoods component.
But before you get into the livelihoods, I'm trying to find out what the assessment, what did you actually find coming from the farmers?
Well, in many of the cases, we found that there was land degradation. We kind of expected that because we had done preliminary assessments. But we also we asked the farmers in terms of what products would they like to plant. So we got a lot of citrus, you can correct me, cocoa, coffee, etc. So we'll be giving those farmers those plants free of charge. In fact, they would be also getting free labor.
Wow.
And we will also be constructing a community nursery where they could be operated by, of course, members of the community.
So there'll be a nursery established in Foster Jacques?
In Foster Jacques, it's being constructed as we speak.
So who is going to be coordinating that activity in terms of ensuring that it is done properly?
Fortunately, we have many experienced persons at forestry, especially in nursery production. In fact, we have 2 case studies in millet and dennery where nurseries were produced in conjunction with the community, and they facilitated the community getting fruit trees for free. The community supplied the seeds. I must add very quickly, it was done under the AusAid project, Australian Aid Project, and you had that cooperation, and it's undocumented, it's something that must be studied. So what we plan to do...
Hold that point, we'll do for our first break. You see, we're moving fast and furious. You're watching Agriculture on the Move. Stay tuned.
Sunday, 14th October from 10 a.m. Photo comes alive as we observe World Food Day 2018 with a grand food fair. Under this year's theme, Our Actions Are Our Future. It's a family fun day full of local cuisines, wild meat, seafoods, and North Pork. local agro products, local wines, and local beers. For the kids, Kids Corner, and of course the entertainment, African Roots, Tabumele, and Sigri. More fire, Montego Bay Solo Group, Steel Pan and Calypso. Lots to eat, lots to drink, lots of prizes to be won. Just bring the family. Admission free. Sunday 14th October, Fordo Heritage Park, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Celebrating World Food Day. And remember, eat fresh, St. Lucia's best.
Welcome back to the program. Doc, we were talking about the establishment of the nurseries, and I'm very curious about that because years ago, I know forestry had a nursery at Union, and then of course we had the nursery, the propagation stations, producing plants for farmers. But now you're bringing it to the farming community, and I think that's a good thing. So tell us a little more about that.
I was saying it's not new, and I want to highlight Mr. Carl Augustin and Mr. Canis Peterson in the Dennery and the Millet Range, respectively. And they were successful at bringing nursery management at the level of community, where they incorporated fruit trees to rehabilitate not just landscapes, but riverbanks. So we're taking that experience and we're going to work with IWECo, where we're not only going to offer forest trees. In the past, farmers would actively cut down these trees. So we're giving farmers, or we hope to supply farmers with not just forest trees, but a greater mix of fruit trees, and it's for free. So farmers can see they're adding value to the landscape, not just protecting it. So we're looking at an integrated approach, not just the nursery management, but we're using bottom-up approaches where they actively decide what, when, and we try to convince them how.
Great. In fact, there's another project, the Ianola project. I think it's similar to what you just mentioned, because in the north, from Cap to Dennery, they are also using that methodology in using especially the mango tree, because of its taproot system that's really, really good for soil conservation measures, and they're planting along the river banks. You know, of course, livelihoods, because you have fruits. You know, and of course you can sell fruits. You can do so many things with the mango fruit, like we had recently, the mango festival, you know, showing St. Lucians what they can do with mango. So I am saying maybe the same thing goes for Fonsejac, right?
Sure.
Well, in Fonsejac, you have a different dynamic, especially in the upper watershed. You'd appreciate the girth that you may get. The diameter of the mango trees may not be suitable. Not only that, you have few mango species that would flower and fruit because of the high rainfall. The rainfall would destroy the flower.
Correct. Yes,
so farmers are expressing an interest in citrus in particular. Cocoa. But coffee, but we're also saying the bread nuts, the bui, all of those forestry's end is not the profit, but the diversity of the species, which is a win-win situation for the farmer. The farmer is looking at economics. So when we have a diversity of species occupying different storage levels in the air and in the soil, you can imagine you can have a more resilient climate and microclimate.
Great. But the thing is, okay, you're establishing tree crops, but don't forget the Fonsejac is going back in history and what's happening now. They produce a lot of short-term crops. How are you going to marry the two? Are you having pure stand planting of your tree crops, which does not leave room for short-term crops? Are you going to be planting them in strip planting, you know, looking at your spacings, etc.?
Okay, so what we plan to do is to give the farmer what he desires, at least most of it. But we are going to have, whether it's between 5 to 10 meters apart, to intercrop lines of the fruit trees. So what we, and in some cases where you have high slopes, to integrate vetiver on the contour. The hope is that you can encourage infiltration of water and retention of soil and erosion and minimize that erosion. Ultimately, it's a win-win situation. Farmers are happy, IWECo
is happy,
personnel are happy, St. Lucia in a better situation to not only have resilient a resilient biophysical environment, but to produce crops that will have a less impact, because we're also looking at organic farming.
Yes.
So
I just want to interject there and say it's what the farmers want vis-a-vis what is best for the soil and what forestry would recommend, but also what is marketable.
Right.
And we also intend to speak to some of the hotels in the area and masses, so we plan a meeting for that very shortly with some of maybe the buyers, the premium cocoa producers and other buyers of chocolate and coffee. So we have to take all of these variables into consideration before we determine the plans.
Are you getting any resistance from the farmers in there? I mean, are they satisfied with what you're taking to them?
They actually, in July, we had a meeting with farmers and we had over 70 of them participate, and we informed them of the project. They seemed quite excited. We also informed them of a new approach that the Foster-Jack Development Committee is leading, which is the agroforestry park, right? And they seemed really excited about that. Yes.
Okay. But the schools, are you getting the schools involved in that too? So because don't forget, farmers are growing, you need to get young people involved.
For sure, because even when we had our inception workshop, we did invite the principals of the area. We recently had a photo and art competition with the schools from the watershed, albeit one school participated, but we're in the process of planning the award ceremony, I think next week. And we intend to liaise with the comprehensive school in Soufrière in looking at how we can inculcate this entire program into the SBAs.
Yes, very good, very good.
Right, yeah.
Okay, we'll do for another break. Okay, you're watching Agriculture on the Move. Again, stay tuned. All right, so we come to our final segment.
For effective chemical treatment of black Sigatoka, practice routine preventative maintenance of all tools and equipment, especially the mist blower, to ensure proper functioning. Clean sprayer after use and service the machine regularly, as recommended by the manufacturer. Whenever you are using pesticides to control black Sigatoka disease, personal protection and safety measures must be followed. Spray operators must always wear proper protective gear. Before or when handling pesticides, put on your overalls, respirator, goggles, boots, and gloves to avoid contact with the skin, inhalation, and ingestion of pesticides.
For more information on how to treat and control black Sigatoka on your farm or in your backyard garden, contact the Black Sigatoka Management Unit at 451-5491, 451-5894, or email bpmu@candw.lc. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Agriculture in collaboration with the International Cooperation and Development Fund of the Republic of China on Taiwan.
Welcome back to the program. Donatian, tell me something. I mean, I'm sure you'll have other collaborants in this whole effort because you're talking about soil conservation measures and you talk about vetiver planting. I'm also seeing, contour drains and graded drains in the mix. So where does the engineering division fits in all of this?
I want to highlight that we've always chosen the strategic alliance approach where we try to work with key partners.
Right.
And in the Ministry of Agriculture, we have on board extension. In fact, on the project steering committee, we have extension, we have agricultural, what do you call it? Mechanization?
Yes.
So they are featured. It's a case of having to integrate them into the operational plans. But they've been part of the meetings and the processes. From the assessments, the intention is to have them on the ground with the information. So in terms of planting, they should be on board. But I also want to highlight that it is a case of empowering the communities to do that kind of work, because we don't necessarily want to do the interventions in their absence. We want them to be part of the process where they are actively learning and implementing the strategies.
Okay. It takes me to my next point. I never knew of this project and its existence. I'm asking the question now. In terms of publicity, I'm not seeing any publicity on that project. So what are you all doing with publicity?
Okay, well, excuse me. Almost every event that we have, we give out a press release. In fact, just last week, we sponsored a coastal cleanup, international coastal cleanup with Caribbean Sea and the Caribbean Youth Environment Network.
Okay.
I mentioned previously with the art competition. We, during the summer vacation, we actually sponsored a summer camp. Over 40 children participated in that. Now the thing is, it's targeted to the Upper Soufriere watershed. This is our target area. But therefore, we need to do a better job of getting it out into the national audience.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. I think we need to know what is happening to better appreciate the activity of IWECo.
Yes, for sure.
Because I don't think people know who is IWECo.
Right.
I can add to that. We're here today.
Yes.
And that's an
It is
indicator.
Good. This is good.
Sure.
In the second place, we are developing a communication strategy.
Correct.
And having done that, we can begin to engage persons and try to know who are the target audience and how to influence them.
All right.
But not only that, the emphasis has been on mobilizing the community.
Right.
So if the community is on board and if they are making the decisions, it's easier to bring the other partners on board,
Right.
which is the greatest challenge for co-management arrangements. So our focus has been from January to now, having community meetings, engaging these persons using the participatory processes. I want to highlight Canary, the Caribbean Natural Resource Institute.
Great.
They taught us some methods that really empower communities to make decisions. So having empowered them, and now they're confident and they're calling us, we can bring the other partners on board.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very good.
And may I say that it really has worked, and it might be too early to tell, but it may even be a best practice. When you get into the community and you get them involved from the onset, and you inform them that this is your project, I'm actually working for you, and that money will be invested as much as we can in the community. So not only are you getting the services from that money, but we're actually paying people within the community to provide those services. And it has worked to the point where, like Don Achen said, they come to us, they want to know what's happening.
Yeah, because in time immemorial, decisions are made for communities, which is bad. We need to get them involved because there's so many white elephants in this country because we believe that's what they want. I mean, I can bring you the Tomaso thing as an example. What is the market? Okay, they saw it fit to build a market for the people, but they never got the people involved.
Exactly.
The people moved from what they want; they went higher up. You're right, and the structure is there. So we need to, if they had engaged them and asked them, hey, would you all need to do this, you need to do that, they will tell you yes or no, or where to build it. You understand? So I like this participatory approach. I think that will take us into the future. And to get the youngsters involved, like I mentioned, I'm always I like to get the young people involved. The other thing is, how many have you all established any of the fruit trees yet, or you're still in the nursery mood?
Well, we have done some riverbank planting, which includes some fruit trees. I think it must be about 300 have been planted. But the restoration efforts on farmlands, this is going to be more precise. We've done the assessments. We're going to get the other partners on board and partner with the community. Okay, the question of the whole agronomic practices for the way forward, the fertilization, the pest and disease management, that integrated approach, is the farmer going to bear that cost? Who's going to assist him in that regard? Remember, forestry's approach is eco-friendly, and the practices that we encourage are one where you don't use fertilizer. You incorporate plants into the landscape that are suitable, and therefore they will survive. So when you incorporate fruit trees and forest trees in contour, your hope, the intention is that it will survive. And we've done it before in Dennery, in millet, and it has worked. However, in the case of soufriere, you want them to also be able to continue some of the practices they have, because there's a market. Remember, it is the bread basket.
Right.
So they would have to be convinced of otherwise not to plant the dash-in. And this may be another phase of IWECo where they can incorporate payment. The persons who may benefit from farmers not planting or using certain inputs lower down in the watershed may have to compensate them if they don't want them to plant. But that is part of a bigger project. Hopefully it is the agritourism park.
Okay. If you have a farmer or you encounter a farmer who decides that he really doesn't want to go your way with the planting of tree crops and he still wants to cultivate his dash-in, his short-term crops, he does not adopt the whole mechanism of soil conservation practices, how can that impact negatively on the project?
Well, the project aims to influence, to change. We cannot dictate that they do, because in most cases it's private land.
Right.
So what we are hoping is that persons may understand they can still plant, they can integrate these strategies, and they can improve the condition of not just the soil, but having access to that soil, making it available for not just this generation, but future generations.
Right.
So it's the game of influence.
That's right. Very good. Final words from you, Mrs. Dasheville?
Oh, really just to appeal to the beneficiaries from Fonse Jacques we need them for that project to be successful.
Right.
We want to appeal to them, to the dash-in farmers, while we know that they have to feed their families. The approach we're looking at is more sustainable, so ultimately they will benefit.
Okay, great. Final from you?
St. Lucia is signatory to many conventions. One of them is that of the Convention on Biological Diversity. We subscribe to improving livelihoods, to ensuring that we have a safe environment. Forestry has been on so many reports, and we are outstanding as a division that contributes to national development. It's possible for farmers to incorporate these strategies and also those that they've been doing traditionally. But there must be some modification. I look forward to making that a reality.
Thank you, Ms. Dasheville. Thank you,
very much.
Mr.
You're
Gustav, for being on the
Mr.
program.
Sidney.
I wish you all
Thank you,
success, and I know it's going to be successful. With that kind of zest you all have there, you'll bring to the table, it will be successful. Thank you again for being here. You've been watching Agriculture on the Move. I would like to thank you, the viewers, for viewing on the Semouna Fonse Jacques. Allez, parlez by Semouna, ek fait by la bien, pas quitter by affecter sur corps. Do the right thing. Carry out your soil conservation measures, plant well, get advice from the technical people, and of course, you will have a better Fonse Jacques in a souffle. Thank you again for viewing. I'm Philip Sidney saying goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sidney.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.